And here we are at Oxnard College in July of 2016 with Alicia Romero. And Alicia has been coming to the STEM Summer Biotech Institute since, I believe it was 2009.
Yep, 2009.
And you were recommended by a teacher in high school.
Mrs. Winter. She was my chemistry teacher, and she was looking for students that were interested in gaining like hands-on lab experience in a biotechnology lab. So I wrote up a short essay on why I was interested, and in that summer, going into my senior year of high school, I ended up joining Dr. Harbour with 2 other students, and that was my first lab experience.
And those students went on to universities in the fall. I think Carlos went to Harvard.
Yeah, so Carlos went on to Harvard, Amanda went on to UCSB, and she studied chemistry, and I took a different path. So I guess I'll get into that. So
you were accepted to UCSB.
Yeah, so I was gonna go to UCSB after high school, and I decided after a little bit of thought that I actually wanted to continue playing water polo because that was a huge passion of mine during high school. So I dropped out of UCSB and I went to a community college in Huntington Beach where I continued to play water polo for a really intense ex-Olympian coach. And then after a few years, I ended up transferring to Cal Poly. So
that's where the story reconnects here.
Yeah.
Because I got a call from you that you were back at home.
Yeah.
You grew up here in Oxnard, and you want to talk a little bit about your family upbringing?
Yeah, so my dad was in the military, and that's how we actually ended up in Oxnard, is we were stationed at Point Magoo, and both my parents were not college educated, but they always pushed us to pursue a higher education and to just pursue our greatest interests in education, I guess. And also, obviously, they supported me continuing water polo. But yeah, so I came back from Cal Poly after my first year at Cal Poly after trying to find research experiences there, and I contacted Dr. Harbour again, and we ended up working on our first research project together. And actually, that's my poster over there, but we won't look at that.
Well, you applied some of the knowledge that you had gained during the time of Amanda and Carlos, which was the PCR technology,
right,
that you then applied to that summer project in looking at the various kinds of harmful organisms that are in the surf, that are in the ocean, which also related to your passion of surfing.
Oh, yeah.
And you found something. You found something that summer.
Yeah, we kind of stumbled upon an assay where we were able to find ampicillin-resistant Vibrio perihemolyticus. Vibrio perihemolyticus is a toxic, or not toxic, but it's a pathogenic bacteria that will give shellfish poisoning, and we were very shocked that we were able to create this assay that selected for Vibrio that was ampicillin resistant.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we left off, and I carried that poster on to 3 conferences in the following year.
One we did together.
Yeah.
That was the Southern California Undergraduate Research Conference, or SCUR. And then you began to find your own funding to take this other places.
Yeah, I got really lucky. I think that's what was the turning point in like how I was able to move from doing research to actually like gaining more and more momentum towards my ultimate goal. So when I went back to Cal Poly with my poster, I joined this minority group called Lewis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation, and it was actually a really small program at Cal Poly, but they provided financial support for me to travel to conferences and like kind of push me to go to conferences. So I went by myself and found funding and started talking to people and just got really interested in the culture of research, and was really interested in just spreading my work as much as I could and to see like how far that could take me. So that was a huge turning point where I started to see like I want to go into research as a career, because before that I wasn't really sure, and I thought maybe I would want to go down a medical route, and yeah, that really like solidified my goals.
I remember you went to a Lewis Stokes conference in Pennsylvania, and then you went also, more importantly, to a National Science Foundation's conference called Emerging Researchers Network, or ERN, in Washington. And this led to other things that we'll talk about maybe a little bit later.
Yeah.
But we're trying to keep the timeline here. After this experience and the lab work with us, you found your way to becoming a Amgen Scholar at Stanford.
Right. So.
And this was something of your own initiative as well.
Yeah. Well, actually, I had been applying for summer research programs since I think like a couple years after we started working together. So like right out of high school, I started applying for these programs. And I didn't get into, I probably had applied for like 12 of them, and I finally got into one my second summer at Cal Poly, and that was the Amgen Scholars Stanford Summer Research Program. So I think, and that was like my second main research experience, and I think what kind of helped me get to that point was by presenting that poster at 3 conferences, because beyond that I had no real substantial part of my resume besides that I had like pushed this poster and like tried to present it so much. And yeah.
You got onto a very interesting project at Stanford in the microbiome, and I remember talking to you that summer. It was a big challenge for you because that was a different league.
Yeah, big leagues. It was really fun though. Yeah, so when I was choosing a lab for my Stanford summer program, I had become interested in microbiome after working with Dr. Harber here at Oxnard. So microbiome is the study of the composition of bacteria in a certain environment. So in this case, or in the lab I was in at Stanford, it was the composition of bacteria in the gut. So we're working on a project where we're trying to see how these gut bacteria are exchanging genetic information. And
I had not even heard the word microbiome. At that time, when you communicated with me, I had to go look up what you were talking about. And as you know, the end of the story is that we have begun in earnest our own microbiome research work to advance the project that you were on. And also we have a second project in that area in the dental, where we're comparing the oral microbiomes of men and women and finding gender differences. And so this was a very important lesson for me as well, as you students move into your research opportunities. This does enhance our own work.
Yeah.
And you've continued to keep in touch, like you have this summer. You're lifeguarding here at Port Hueneme and Point Magoo, I guess, is the beach.
Down south.
Down south. But you're looking forward to this next phase, which we're so proud of you for accomplishing, and that was of your own initiative too. You made a lot of applications, and what were those applications about this past year?
Well, we skipped one thing. But
Okay. Cool. What was that?
So after I graduated from Cal Poly, I applied for postbacks, which is like a year-long NIH-funded research experience.
Right.
For students who want to pursue their PhD but need to get kind of like an extra experience level.
Right, and that was an entirely new program I hadn't heard of.
Yeah, they're pretty new, which is great because I applied to several programs and I had a good pick, or I got to pick between a couple schools. So I ended up going to Santa Cruz, and that's where I was for the past year at UC Santa Cruz, and I was working in a spliceosome lab there. So that was very different from what I've ever worked on before, but it was good insight into this whole RNA world, which is like a whole nother field. But yeah, so while I was at Santa Cruz, I was also applying for for my PhD, for PhD programs, and I will be starting at UC San Diego in September in hopefully microbiology and immunology, and I want to keep pursuing microbiome work.
Yeah, and so it's been astonishing to see you've accessed a whole bunch of rare opportunities, and if there's a common theme to that success, it was that you were very persistent, and you kept asking me for letters of support, and that wasn't that difficult because we had a lot of knowledge of what you were doing at these various points, and that you've gone all over the place. You went to Scripps, Florida several times. You went to Washington to ERN, we'd mentioned a couple times. But the one story I thought maybe you might want to illuminate us about was the snowstorm at Cold Spring Harbor lab.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, so interview season was this past January, and one of my interviews was at Cold Spring Harbor in Long Island, New York. And it happened to coincide with the Snowzilla of 2016, which was this like rogue blizzard that several people passed away, and it was just completely out of the blue. It was a crazy snowstorm, I think like 3 or 4 feet in a couple days or couple nights. So I was interviewing at Cold Spring Harbor right in the center of the storm, and we had to extend our stay there because no one could get in or out of that area. So that was actually really cool. I
got a picture from you of it is really a science thing, but the translation sculpture in snow with you guys playing around there.
The dance of the polysomes.
The dance of the polysomes.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, the part that has been really amazing for me is that you become aware of these time points, like your post-bac time points, your NSF, REU time points, your Amgen, internship, and you really locked on to those in a way that other students perhaps don't. And that, if there's a lesson from this, that this is accessible to everyone, but very few students choose to be persistent in pursuing those things that you did. And so it's a very rare resume that has all these things on it, some undergraduate research experience, which we helped you with, and Amgen, and then a full laboratory technician position at a UC school for a year. And then this interviewing at what are the top schools, and then your final selection ended up being
UCSD.
UC San Diego. And you're going to join the board meetings in La Jolla?
Oh yeah, hopefully.
The Biotech board meetings of executives that surf.
Yeah.
And that's a little different crowd than around here.
That would be pretty cool. I hadn't heard of that until you mentioned it to me, actually.
And you're also going to be hopefully studying again this new topic area you talked about with a professor that you were interested in.
Yeah. Well, she does microbiome work, but she does less cataloging work and more like looking into defense mechanisms and how we can really push that instead of using antibiotics.
Right, and
that makes
that
sense.
woman's name was?
Sorry. Oh, her name is Janelle Ayers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's very young. She's actually from Stanford, so yeah.
And then you'll go there and do laboratory internships, and that's one of the labs.
Yeah, so we'll have 4 rotations in my first year, and I've asked her if I could rotate with her, so hopefully we all get along, and I like the work, and it turns out all good, because I would really love to join that lab.
Right, and the associations with microbiome are never ending in terms of their
Yeah.
newness of discovery. We're just trying to sort this all out at
Yeah.
this point in time. The disease associations, the impact on medicine is going to be enormous.
Yep.
And it's wonderful to see you get in on the ground floor of something like this.
Yeah, whether or not I'm involved with it, I want to see in my lifetime that become a big part of medicine, because I think that's where we're hugely lacking when we treat people in any type of disease. So
Defining actually what's wrong with them from a microbial perspective.
Yeah.
We're just on the verge of doing that now with the microbiome.
Yeah.
And in the past, it's been a lot of guessing. It's-
or we're just completely unaware that we're harming ourselves by harming them. So we can try to protect the things that are protecting us, and it'll.
Our community
Yeah.
that we live in of organisms needs to be
Right.
balanced. Okay, well, it's just so great to see you here, and we're
Yep.
looking forward to more collaborations and reports. You're still working with us on the harmful algae bloom
Yep.
paper, and that's maybe the final story that we'd like to say, is that we had an invitation to publish our work that you had helped with for those years, and this invitation came as the result of your taking the poster to Washington, D.C. to Emerging Researchers Network. And so this summer, incidentally, you're here and able to participate in the editing process.
I'm really
at some
excited
point.
about that.
And
It
so-
just came out the blue pretty much that we got invited to write up our project.
Right. So there is a lot of interest in this, and this will be another little accompany piece for your
Yeah,
career in
hopefully.
science.
Cool.
Yeah, that's great. All right, thanks very much.